Hi everybody, I'm Hamish McLachlan and welcome to The Real Story, brought to you by RESO. The Real Story is a series of conversations with high-performing real estate agents and industry leaders. The conversations have been had hoping to be inspirational, informative or entertaining, or maybe all three. I really hope you enjoy them. Dane Atherton shares his journey in real estate, one that's led him to owning the #1 Harcourts office in Australia today. Dane talks about his focus on building a great team culture, knocking down the walls of his office one by one, and the need to be able to bounce back from the lows. Dane, thanks for joining us on The Real Story.
Pleasure.
#1 Harcourts office in Australia, but it hasn't always been so easy for you. Early on, you were sort of drifting and didn't really know what you wanted to do.
Well, very early on, back in the uni days, but I like to call them the veranda bar days, because that's where I ended up. I did psychology for a year. I pulled out of that after about 6 months and then did business and floated around and found myself in the real estate industry. As many of us that are in the industry, that's kind of how it happens.
You started as a PA, then became an auctioneer and an auctioneer trainer.
Yeah, I started as a PA for an independent firm on the Gold Coast. And quickly, the first day I joined, they did 3 auctions and they sold them all under the hammer. And I thought, wow, this is me. This is, I was just enthralled by the whole auction process. I moved to Sydney for a year, which was it was a good learning experience, let's say that. Came back and then I was given the opportunity to become the chief auctioneer for a large franchise group when I was about 24.
And how did you end up at Harcourts?
I had a young family starting on the Gold Coast and auctioneering and training and travelling around Australia, and I made a decision that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in the same community with my family.
So what does owning and building and creating a team and business give you?
It gives me great fulfilment. I've got a belief that the best feeling in the world is being proud of yourself. And what makes me proud of myself is being able to help people do what they want to do. And that's not always about patting them on the back and saying good job. Particularly with the younger generation coming through, I believe they need leadership more than ever.
When you look at the people that you're working with and you see them grow, is that where you get most joy?
Absolutely. We've got our awards night in a few days and there'll be people up there achieving personal bests and they'll have their team and family there, and being able to share those moments, you're with them along the journey for the harder moments, and you believe in them. And that's probably one of the big lessons I got from one of my early mentors, is believing in people before they believe in yourself.
That was Don Marion, your mentor?
Yeah, Don Marion gave me my start as the chief auctioneer. He kind of saw something that I didn't see, but the fact that he saw it was actually almost as good as me seeing it. He saw it before me. Gave me a great opportunity. Was hard but fair, always encouraging. You turn up, you do an auction, you think you're doing really well, and during the auction I'd gaze out and I'd see Don in the crowd and he'd pull out a notepad, and then I'd get into the office on Monday and he'd want to catch up and we'd go through the notepad, the dreaded notepad. But I look back now and think, well, they were actually really great observations that if he hadn't have made, I probably wouldn't have corrected and gotten better and grown in my profession.
What's the best lesson or piece of advice Don gave you?
Never think you've arrived. I think he used to often say to me, Dane, I think you think you've arrived. And normally that was code for your ego's getting out of control and you've stopped learning.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that was great to have someone in my corner observing that, because now I'm kind of almost self-aware of it. He instilled that in me.
What's the one mistake that agents make that you see?
The big mistake I think people make is they don't master the emotional management of the business. They take things far too personally. In saying that, you've got to have that belief and you've got to want to win and you've got to want to be chosen and you have the competitive juices flowing. But the bounce back factor is so important. If you allow a failure, to determine your next 3 meetings because you're carrying that negativity in, you're missing so many opportunities.
So all the highs are easy to deal with. How do you manage the lows?
The typical reaction from an amateur would be to blame the other agent, blame the client, they cut the fee, whatever. The real pros actually take the lesson and acknowledge the person won and actually seek feedback from the client.
Chris Fagan, the coach of the Brisbane Lions, says, win or learn.
It's easier said than done when you've had a big loss. But the champion mindset is to learn and get the lesson out of it. You're going to be that little bit better the next presentation, the next deal you're in front of.
So when you own your own business, you employ great people and build a great team. How hard is it when you lose a key team member?
When someone leaves your business, you've got to ask yourself honestly, could I have done anything more to grow them, keep them, help them? There's probably a handful of people that have left our business over 11 years where I could own that and say that was my fault. If you act like everyone's leaving, they'll leave sooner. But if you act like everyone's staying, that old saying, if you train them and what if I train them and they leave? Well, what if you don't and they stay?
Yeah.
So you've really got to approach your business like everyone is staying, because if you don't invest in the little things and appreciate them and help them grow and make them feel special, we're not going to retain people for very long.
Be an empty office pretty quickly.
It certainly would.
Best piece of advice you've been given along the way?
Oh, there's a lot, but I mean, you would say believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you would say, I mean, it's such an easy roll off the tongue thing to say, but life is short. You just don't know when your last breath's going to be. So just do it. Just go for it and follow your dreams and know who you are. Find out what you're great at, find out what you love, and just do it as often as you can.
Your industry is high stress, high anxiety. How do you manage that?
Well, I mean, the word anxiety is an interesting word. Like, there's anxiety that people bandied around, and there's genuine anxiety that people get. And I've had a bit of that. We've got one of our agents speaking at ARIC in a big real estate conference, and he's nervous. And I say, mate, that's exactly how you should feel. I mean, if you're not nervous and you don't have extreme anxiety because you're about to speak in front of thousands of people, there's something wrong. I think you can do things. I think you can give yourself the best chance by exercising, eating right, not having vices that are destructive in that mental loop of social media. If anyone's in a rut, get off social media straight away and start eating well and exercising, and do that for a week and see whether you're still in the rut. Chances are you won't be.
Your wife's in property?
Yeah, she heads up our property management team.
So together you've built this business which seemingly has grown and grown. I think you started with one shop and just kept knocking out walls as you grew. How many walls have you knocked out now?
Oh, about 6 now in the same office. Yeah, we started with one tenancy in Broadbeach, and then we went upstairs to another tenancy, and then 2, 3, 4, 6 tenancies later. I think we're up to our 7th tenancy in that building now. But that was just a case of build it, create the platform for the next phase of growth. And you go, okay, well, let's grow again. You grow, you take some space. If you do it piece by piece over 11 years, we've got 90 salespeople, and it hasn't happened by, one big decision. It's
step by step.
Step by step.
What makes you happiest?
Being on a boat in beautiful tropical water with my family. I love that. We actually went on a big holiday at Hamilton Island recently, and we're in this beautiful home overlooking the water. And what we all realised, all the family, 2 brothers, all the grandkids, and we said, it actually wouldn't matter where we are. We didn't even look at the view. We were too engrossed on being together. So being together with your family is, it's hard to go past that.
Thanks for talking to us on The Real Story, Dane.
Pleasure.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Massive thanks to RESO. Remember, RESO, real power. reso.com.au.